My love for art, I guess, began when I was maybe 6 years old, and I was reading storybooks, sitting in my room, and the pictures became much more colorful to me. So I started drawing over pictures I saw, and eventually drawing next to them, and then drawing my own pictures that started coming to mind. And seeing what it could do for people when they looked at it was interesting. I actually had applied for the army just after high school, and it freaked my mom out so much that she sent me a message with some art institutions that I should look into. So it just happened by chance. Had it been 2 weeks, I maybe would have joined and maybe come back to it later. I'll sit on my own sometimes, and the first thing that comes to mind is the sound of birds. Whether they're near or they're far, my ear picks out nature, and then my eyes try and find where the greener spots in the city are. And once I find those, I feel more comfortable. Once I hear the birds, I feel more comfortable. I feel as though I have a better sense of time and where I am. And so nature calls out, I guess, and it feels more natural and comfortable. And so with my work, I find that we are naturally surrounded as people by nature, and we try to create spaces that are outside of nature for some reason, that are not like us. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and know what I'm painting because I dreamt about it. And other times I'll walk through nature, walk through the city and see a plant growing in the middle of some bricks, or see some ferns growing on the top of a rooftop. And it starts making me think of something like a crown, or what happens when plants grow out of us, or how do we look when we grow. And so I guess there's a catalyst. It's either a dream or it's nature. And so I always start with that, and I'll start with a sketch from then. And a drawing will be made. I might look for some references or take pictures of the plants in my studio and start to construct a concept around that. But before I get quite serious with the artwork, I really try to resolve my concept and look to making it very clear to people that this is about this, or we're talking about this subject. And once that's clear, I look for materials, but I try not to control what's going to happen in the end. And the materials lend themselves not to be controlled as well. For instance, when you add water to charcoal, or when you add too much water to your canvas, you lose control. And so I think that's quite an important aspect in my artwork as well. Engaging with the canvas where it takes over and you take a step back. And then I see, once it dries or I've let some time pass, I approach it from a different perspective and try to pull and push back certain elements. And it just so happens that it comes together, I guess, over practice. But I've been finding myself using more charcoal and more clay, and when you use more natural materials, you have to find a way to make sure they last on the canvas, for instance. So finding different mediums and different adhesives. So I guess it's quite a process of experimentation, and you have to be open to experiment. Because I think it creates more natural art when you create with the picture space, the picture frame. You don't try and occupy or control the picture frame. You let it create with you, along with the material. And all you have to do is try and create space for the subject and whatever objects you include in the canvas. And so, once I feel as though I've resolved those main issues, like the concept and what's coming in the forefront and what's in the background, I feel that all that's left to resolve in the artwork is my opinion, which sometimes comes in patterns, white lines. People have called them spiritual markings, but they come in lines and shapes and dots and circles. And it's become a bit of a language on top of this artwork that me and the canvas have created. And so, yeah, once I've put my opinion on it and how I feel about it, I guess I just do a final check, package, sign, roll it up. But it's really just that, making sure that you've resolved your concept and you have a better communication with what you're trying to paint or create and how people will view it. And so you just want to make sure that your message is clear once you have a good understanding of what it is you're creating. I believe that the gaze is underlooked these days. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's because technology has taken over us thinking about the gaze actively as artists, because we have screens and that forms part of the gaze. But what I've realized through the pandemic is that we've had to hide our faces. I guess it's frustrating for software, facial software technology. But what it's done is the fact that we have to wear masks has focused all of our attention on people's eyes. And so we get a better sense of people and who they are and how they identify, based on their eyes. So as an artist myself, when I work on a subject, I know that the gaze lives in the artwork and it lives outside of the artwork. And outside of the artwork is how people will see your work, These days, I've been thinking more about where my artworks will go, the kinds of walls they will occupy, and the kinds of spaces they need to live in for the energy of the artwork to gaze back in that space. Sometimes I think of artworks that are sitting in museums when there's no one around and how they look at the space. And that's quite important because that's how our artworks occupy time, is through the gaze. Because how you see my artwork right now, you'll see it quite differently in 10 years' time. And again, the people who are around in 100 years will have a different gaze. So the gaze is, it's complex. You have to be aware of how people see your work and the space it occupies. So I think my work responds to the African narrative positively by adding. I think Western work and Eastern work has done really well in their existence by adding to their culture. They show their kings, they show their people, they show their landscape, they show their interests and the time that they occupied. And from the artwork that was taken by the West and now lives in their museums, you have a good understanding that that's what we were also doing as Africans. We had a very good way of describing our daily life and our kings and showing people what that looks like outside of our people. And so I think my own practice, it adds positively to the narrative of Africans because it's representation from an African. And so you're getting a first-hand narrative instead of having a Westerner telling you what they think of Africa. I'm describing what we look like right now. And that's quite important, I think, for more Africans to be doing. Not to look too much to what is economically beneficial to your creation, because that could dilute your work. Instead, you need to honestly look into why you are African and how you occupy the space in Africa, and then just describe it. It's not too difficult when you filter a lot of the art world out of the way. They're concerned with markets and trends and walls, and we, the artists, are concerned with honestly depicting our time, because we have a lot of time to ourselves, and with it we see beauty and we see hardship, and we have to manifest this onto a canvas. And so that's the narrative. Do your research and make sure that you're aware that you're occupying a space that should be viewed as a duty. and not so much as a career or a job or a hobby. It's a duty because it shapes culture and it lives beyond you. And so when you do something, you should have the intention that you're going to do it correctly. And the duty part of it comes in, obviously, speaking honestly about what's happening today, because it becomes reality tomorrow once again. I think it's important to remember that art is a privilege and a duty to create. It weighs on you because it's a duty. It doesn't weigh on you because it's not respected or people don't know how to look at art or appreciate it.